So this is possibly the most online left story I've ever covered. I'm pretty sure up until today, this might have actually been a meme online. Like an over-exaggerated meme about how politically inept a lot of tankies and woke scolds and young baby lefties on TikTok and what have you will be, and how willing they are to jump on board with radical positions without any forethought whatsoever. I'm pretty sure this was an example of a joke in that realm, alright? Osama bin Laden letter goes viral on TikTok. Gen Z has discovered a letter that has recently surfaced from bin Laden, Osama bin Laden, who has been quite long dead now, that was titled A Letter to America. And I guess it is the first time many of these people have heard, like, a narrative about American foreign policy and politics that isn't the nonsense you hear peddled in a lot of, like, schools and media. And it blew their minds so much, many of them are just unironically pro-Bin Laden now. Just straight up. And many of them are unironically like, yeah, no, okay, 9/11 was good. Possibly the biggest internet lefty moment of this century. I haven't looked too deep into this, but what I've seen a lot of are tweets that are screenshots of TikToks of these, like, 20-something-year-old women who've taken who have, like, it's like a picture of them folding laundry or something, and it's captioned, "My face after finishing my read of Letter to America," and it's them looking like their lives have changed and their entire perspective has changed. And it's like, really? A letter from Osama bin Laden is what radicalized you? Deeply disappointed in my generation. Truly, truly, truly. Let's take a look at this news article on it. Or, not article, but news story. This video. Osama bin Laden letter goes viral.
And the TikTok videos related to this are being either have been or are being taken down. The discussion continues, though, and we have with us Colby Hall right now, found in the...
Yeah, apparently Osama bin Laden liked watching anime and playing video games. I don't know how much of that is a meme, but I've seen a lot of people saying that as if it's like 100% serious. And I choose to believe it. I choose to believe that he was a weeb who played video games and was a neat. He was also a Hassan fan.
Editor of Mediaite, News Nation contributor.
You win chat today, roundabout.
So again, TikTok, I guess, says it's taking some actions. It's going to remove some of this the content as it finds it. It's going to scrub it. Okay, that's the latest. That said, I mean, I think we're all kind of taken aback, those of us of a certain age at least, when we saw this today. I mean, what was your, first of all, your reaction, more or less?
He was a lolicon too. Lots of weebs are. I'm less concerned with the fact that he was a lolicon and more concerned with the fact that he almost certainly had underage wives and mistresses.
Analysis.
And what a tragic and disgraceful turn of events that you have sort of, I see this less as a TikTok problem, more as an American youth culture problem. And by the way, not all American youths are doing this.
No shit.
People would read this copy that was flatly anti-American and anti-Semitic and find empathy with the words of Osama bin Laden, who's responsible for the death of nearly 3,000 innocent Americans, is really sort of pathetic and sad, and it shows how far we've gone. Not only did they find sympathy, but they decided to record themselves and amplify how impressed they were just for clicks. And, you know, TikTok has addressed it.
I like how this mainstream news organization is extra mad about how people are, like, the one thing that might have come... I haven't read this, so I'm not going to, like, say it's good or bad, as far as, like, the takes in it or the claims made in it or the writing in it. But my guess is there's some probably decent takes on the, like arguably decent takes on the Israel-Palestine thing. I doubt he's arguing for a two-state solution, but I imagine he just like lists a bunch of war crimes and awful things that Israel has done to the Palestinians, and the U.S.'s support of Palestine is probably the main like focus. And if it's just that, then like, yeah, he talks about Jews a lot. Okay, so is it actually like full of anti-Semitism? And that wouldn't surprise me. Vosh has read it. It's just a few correct points that come from a wildly incorrect basis. That doesn't surprise me. Yeah, it's about what I'd expect. What I'm imagining is that there's like one or two pretty solid arguments about U.S. foreign policy and like Israel and Palestine stuff, surrounded by insane ramblings and radicalizing nonsense. And it is a really bad thing that so many Gen Zers read that and were like, yo, Osama bin Laden based, bro.
They've taken them down. I don't think that this is a Chinese Communist Party designed to split up America. I do think that there's way too many young Americans that don't understand the horrors of 9/11.
Let's talk about that a little bit, the age, because the age in general, even with the war that's going on now, is a big story about what's happening with all the protests and how old people are protesting the college campuses and all the rest. We have a pie chart, I think, that'll show the age of, people and how it relates to 9/11. This is important, I think. I'm 46, so I was 24 on September 11th of 2001. I was a local radio reporter at the time. I covered 9/11. I covered the attacks, the aftermath. I have a certain perspective on it. You have a certain perspective on it.
Many will say this is a bad thing. This is inarguably a good thing. More people getting into voting age that don't remember 9/11 is objectively good. 9/11, as horrible of a tragedy as it was used by the worst people in American politics to instill some of the worst anti-freedom policies of all time. I'm sorry. Like you guys know, the creation of the Department of Homeland Security was because of 9/11. Like the fucking what was it? The act that like super invaded a shit ton of our fucking privacy. What was it called? The Patriot Act? I remembered on my own. Nice. Yeah, the Patriot Act, TSA is because of 9/11. These all came about because like right-wing psychos wanted to clamp down on our freedoms, and they used 9/11 as an excuse. And people's fear of 9/11 is what garnered the support for these people that instilled these policies. People hitting voting age that don't even remember 9/11 is a good thing. Trust me.
There's a lot of people who were born.
They're able to look at it objectively. Maybe they lost family to it. I know people who lost family to 9/11, actually. Well, I don't currently know them, but I've known people who lost family to 9/11. But it's a tragedy that exists in recent history, but it is not something that they have been in their lifetime filled with propaganda and fear-mongering over, for the most part. Obviously, as more time passes, this phenomena will become even more obvious, but yeah. I was 16 when 9/11 happened. It can't be understated just how much America lost its damn mind after it happened. Do you know how dangerous it must have been to be like publicly, openly Muslim in America the day after 9/11? The danger was coming from the people. Those same people are being replaced by newer generations who weren't around for that fear-mongering, that hatred and that fear and that bigotry. My grandma took off her scarf because she was scared. Doesn't surprise me. I'd be afraid of a hate crime in that situation too. Oh yeah, Islamophobia fucking exploded? Of course it did. Yeah.
After 9/11, and as you said, not all of them have this perspective where they would look at it and take this course of action, but it does bring up this wider question of what's going on right now with young people and how they feel about their own country. I mean, we see it in the protests too. I mean, what is it? What's going on here with age?
Never forget was what we said a lot after 9/11, and I live 20 blocks from World Trade Center and remember it very, very clearly. People, a lot of kids that were born after that didn't have anything to forget. And I think maybe we've failed them by teaching them it was the worst attack on American soil ever. And the fact that they would sort of not make light of that, but find sympathy with Osama bin Laden is disgusting. The other issue is that, as the graphic just said, so many of these young people are getting their news from TikTok.
Yes.
And again,
He's actually based here. What he just said is, our one-sided teaching of 9/11 is just the biggest tragedy ever in American history, and leaving it at that is what is leaving this generation open to this propaganda. If we actually taught in our schools about how the US's dogshit foreign policy led to 9/11 happening, and actually, like, we didn't, like, essentially lie to kids so that they would be exposed to a tiny grain of truth along with more lies and get radicalized because they found out that, like, some of what they learned was bullshit. Like, it's like he's saying that we're doing it a service by not giving the appropriate context to future generations about what led to 9/11. We caused it. We didn't do it. We didn't ask for it. We didn't have it coming, but we caused it. Our actions caused it. And it could have been prevented. It could have been prevented a million times over. It could have been prevented. Going back decades and decades and decades of U.S. foreign policy, it could have been prevented. And if we taught that in schools, I think there'd be a lot less kids on TikTok talking about how this letter from Osama bin Laden radicalized them and opened their eyes.
TikTok isn't necessarily like an outlet, a journalistic outlet. It's just a forum for people to put up stuff that they want.
But it's gone up a lot.
No one really
for news.
Right. Well, not many people that put videos on TikTok abide by any journalistic standards whatsoever. In fact, they're typically, what we're seeing here, trying to say outlandish and crazy things
to get clicks,
to chase clicks,
well, to get
attention.
Can I ask you one more question, just because I'm sorry to cut you off, just for the sake of time? Are we sure? Do you have any concern that about the legitimacy of all of this? In other words, about
that is crazy. 32% of young adults get news from TikTok. 32% of Gen Zers that are adults get their news from TikTok. We're doomed. That is adult Gen Zers, guys. There's a really good George Carlin quote, by the way. This is nothing new, though, to be fair. There's a really good George Carlin quote that goes as follows. I hope I don't butcher it on accident. I'm sorry if I do. Think about how stupid the average person is. Now, remember the fact that half of them are dumber than that. I say those numbers are honestly about there. Those numbers are about on point.
Are these, do we know these are real kids saying what they're saying? It brings up this wider question. We're going into an election year. There'll be a lot of stuff online. How do we know what's real, what's viral, what we should believe?
So this came to newsmakers' attention because it was tweeted by Yashar Ali, who's a big influencer, and he said thousands of these videos. It's a massive amount of content. You can't count. Are there really thousands? There are, even if there's a dozen, that's enough, right? I think maybe it's not as big a trend and viral as we think, but even a little bit should be, blinking red light that we need to address this somehow. And that's a conversation for another day.
No, it is. Legitimately, it's a point that should be talked about, and we did. But that other question also about, hey, let's be careful about what we're watching online and how do we know it's real is another thing, especially in an election year. So anyway.
Exactly right.
I know you're on top.
AI is going to make this election year so fucking weird. The amount of fake AI, obviously fake AI images that are going to get passed around by Republicans as, like, real, that are going to deny it when you say that is obviously AI. Look at, like, the hands and how they're just blobs. And they're going to deny it and say, no, this is a real photo of Joe Biden killing a kid. It's like, no, it's not. Yes, it is. Like, this election's going to be fucking wild, dude. AI needs to be made illegal immediately.
Top of all of this, what a time to be following media. Colby Hall with us, News Nation contributor. Thanks so much for watching.
Zan, here's a cringe example of the left on this. Can pretty safely state that bin Laden and I did not agree on much, but blowing up the World Trade Center is probably the most principled and defensible thing he ever did. This tweet has been deleted. 137 quote tweets. This person called Keffel's a fascist grifter. Not surprising. Not surprising. Most people who hate Keffels are pretty insane. Especially on the left. Especially so on the left. What a crazy time we're in. Goddamn Zoomers.